Hey everyone. As you can see, today's movie is Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. I meant to post this review sooner, but folks, this movie just sucked the soul right out of me. It really did. The sequel to 2013's Man of Steel reunites director Zack Snyder with Henry Cavill as Superman and introduces Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne, aka Batman, all while setting up an expansive DC cinematic universe. After the incident in Metropolis between Superman and General Zod at the end of Man of Steel, which leveled part of the city and left many dead, billionaire Bruce Wayne immediately distrusts the Man of Steel, partially because some people close to him were killed in the attack, and because he's intimidated by his immense power and... honestly, the conflict between Batman and Superman, when all said and done, is kinda shallow. There are elements of something that could have been interesting, but they don't really do anything with it. Oh, by the way, I'm putting up a mild spoiler warning here. I won't give away anything that wasn't already revealed in the trailers, but since the trailers themselves were pretty spoilerish to begin with, if you want to go into this movie cold, you may want to stop the review here and pick up later. Let's get one thing out of the way. I didn't care much for Man of Steel. I didn't hate it, and there were certain things about it I really liked, but it was brought down by an awful screenplay, compliments of David Goyer and Christopher Nolan, not to mention hit-and-miss direction from Zack Snyder. Sadly, Batman vs. Superman falls into a similar trap. A lousy script is once again the main culprit, this time compliments of writers David Goyer and Chris Terrio, and allegedly some uncredited work from Ben Affleck. And let me preface this review with one thing. I am not some kind of adaptation authenticity purist. The fact that a movie doesn't follow the comics note for note doesn't bother me. All I ask for is a well-written screenplay that honors its source material even if not necessarily following it 100% faithfully. But in this case, a bad script is a bad script. For starters, all the characters have basically been relegated to the most bare-bones elements of their established personalities. To call them one note would be an understatement. The film is choppy and inconsistent, partially due to some bad editing which seems to cut out large chunks of the story for time, resulting in a few unfinished subplots, out-of-nowhere moments that raise more questions than they answer, and an overall confusing narrative. Not to mention, it was full of tedious and stale dialogue leading up to Batman having a really lame revelation in the third act that almost made me laugh. The conflict between Batman and Superman never really gels either. What could have been a compelling duel between conflicting methods, ideas, and backgrounds is relegated to one of the stupidest rivalries in movie history. Okay, so I get that Bruce Wayne doesn't trust Superman because of the events in Metropolis, but since this version of the Dark Knight has no qualms about killing or rampant destruction, it comes off as really hypocritical, as does Superman's derision toward Batman for being a vigilante. What could have, what should have been this amazing duel between titans for the ages is actually closer to two petulant children fighting each other because of their egos. So much wasted potential here. They could have explored the themes of a battle between powers, the one with godlike physical abilities versus the billionaire playboy whose wealth gives him the kind of power that would allow a man to control the world. How about a few scenes with some kind of battle of the minds? A master detective and one of Metropolis's best reporters trying to outwit one another could have been interesting. So what do we get? A lot of intimidating stares and a brief 10-minute fistfight between the two because Bruce Wayne got his hands on some kryptonite and brought Superman to his level. How inspired.
Tell me, do you bleed?
That's the other thing. Aside for a semi-decent action-packed finale, there's really not that much action, and what we do get is just okay. Hell, even Man of Steel managed to throw in a few legitimately awesome action scenes, maybe a bit too much, but still. And that would be easy to forgive if the film offered something else, but there's just not much here. Zack Snyder gives what might be the worst direction in his career. Yes, even more so than Sucker Punch. I've said it before, but I've grown pretty tired of the dark, gritty visual aesthetic and dead serious tone that plagues so many movies these days, but I could have easily overlooked all of that if the movie offered an interesting story, compelling direction, some sense of artistic accomplishment, or even just something exciting. Snyder's ability to frame shots is still impressive, but almost all of his attempts at Terrence Malick-style imagery ultimately rings hollow and empty. They're nice to look at, but for all the ambition and attempts at grandeur, they mostly come off as emotionless and pretentious, which wouldn't have been a huge deal if the movie wasn't framing itself as this big, grand, moving epic. The cast does what they can, but most of their efforts fall short. Ben Affleck gets a few solid moments, but since this is probably the most one-note depiction of the Caped Crusader in the medium's history, he gets little opportunity to actually do anything with the character. Likewise, Henry Cavill's Clark Kent is even more drained of personality than he was in Man of Steel, ditto for Amy Adams as Lois Lane. Not to mention, neither Cable or Adams have any kind of chemistry, so their romantic scenes come off as awkward, not helped by the aforementioned awful dialogue. Though by far the biggest weak link is Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor, who has recently become a strong contender for the worst superhero movie villain of all time. The fact that they reimagined Luthor's character so drastically doesn't bother me that much, since Luthor has been reinterpreted over and over before. But my god is he terrible in this. His character's motivations frequently change, his personality is never consistent, and Eisenberg's performance is annoying as hell.
I love bringing people together. How are we?
Lex?
Hi, hello, Lex. It is a pleasure. Ow, wow, that is a good grip. You should not pick a fight with this person.
The fact that he's awful in this is bad enough, but knowing that he's probably going to hover over all the future DC movies for the foreseeable future makes it even worse. So you're probably asking, was there anything in this movie I liked? Well, Wonder Woman was kinda cool. Yes, Wonder Woman, played by Gal Gadot, makes her big screen debut here. She doesn't have a whole lot of screen time. Instead, she's basically here for a cameo and some Justice League and future DC movie world building. Still, Gadot's performance is solid, she kicks some serious ass in the end, is responsible for the film's one legitimately awesome moment, and is the only thing keeping this movie from ranking alongside the genre's worst outings next to films like Green Lantern, Fantastic, and Catwoman. Other than that, well, I admit I kinda like the costumes, especially Batman's new look. Well, minus his weird anti-Superman armor, which looks kinda strange. And I did like some of the banter between Bruce and Alfred, who by the way is portrayed by a spot-on Jeremy Irons.
Even you got too old to die young.
Not for lack of trying.
Of course, none of that was enough to forgive the film's multiple stumbles. As I said at the beginning of this review, this movie just left me feeling depressed. I don't like seeing two of my all-time favorite characters get such a terrible movie. And the thought of the future DC movies to come, if they're as empty, joyless, and soulless as this one, that's just upsetting. Just upsetting. I give Batman v Superman 1.5 stars out of 5.
She with you?
I thought she was with you.
Alright, thanks for watching this video. Let me know what you thought of Batman vs Superman by leaving me a comment below. And if you like what you saw and you want to see more, click subscribe and tune in next Monday for a new video. I've also got links to some of my previous videos here and links to my social media pages in the description box below. I'll see you next time.